Welcome to another episode of Plus One. I'm Alli Webb.
And I'm Jaclyn Johnson. And today we're talking about our past romantic lives. Just how we got here, essentially.
Yeah.
Like what
Why
we
are
thought.
we-
yeah,
why are we hosting a show about dating?
Why are we hosting a show about dating? How we got here. So I'll throw it to you first. Do you want to talk about, when you're younger, your ideas around relationships, like any formative relationships pre your first marriage, or just was your first marriage kind of
if I really talked about all that, we'd be here for 17 hours. Also, I just realized, I was like, oh, right, you're so good at this because of Create and Cultivate. Like, you're such a natural host.
Oh, thanks, girl.
You're welcome. Okay. Anyways, yes, so I grew up I've been married twice for those who don't know. My first marriage was 16 years, and he was the father of my two boys who are now 17 and 19. No, 17 and 20.
Crazy.
I don't have a teenager anymore. I have a
5 years away from me dating him.
Oh my God. Jaclyn, stay away.
I'm just kidding.
I'm not bringing Grant to set. He was my co-founder at Dry Bar. We built Dry Bar together.
So day one, Dry Bar together.
We got married when I was 27 or something, and we had our boys really young, and then we started Dry Bar. So that was in 2003, I guess.
And
then
how long were you together before you got married when you were 27?
just 2 years.
So 25 to what?
27.
How old were you when you got divorced?
We got divorced after 16 years. So
16
so
years.
I
So
was, I think
40?
I was 40, when we got divorced. And we had
huge chunk of time.
Yeah.
Really formative years for sure.
And, and it's funny because it's especially having older boys now. And my sweet boy is my older son was dating this girl, and he was like, I think I could marry her. I was like, no. You're definitely not going to do that. And he was like, you don't know, Mom, whatever. And it's I know that, that feeling when you're young and in love and you think they're the greatest person until you don't. But, the thing with me and Cam, which, I write about in my book and whatever, The Messy Truth, if anybody wants to pick that up, we were really young. And
so young.
And what I learned, and I think the biggest lesson is that, and it's impossible to get this if you're in it, but what I wanted when I was 25, 26 is very different than what I wanted when I was 30 and 40.
Totally.
Even the type of man, Cam's an amazing man. He's an amazing dad. He's great. It just wasn't right for me. The advice I'd give anybody who's younger is wait and don't get married, because I think that this is where a dating expert on this will be really good to talk through.
I don't know. I think everyone needs to get their first marriage under their belt.
Maybe.
Just
but
get it over with.
The first marriage, and this didn't happen in your case, but I think in a lot of my friends who are in their late 40s who are divorcing now, it's your first husband you had the kids with, things were real messy.
That's typical, yeah.
Yeah, and that was the case with me. My second marriage was, with a man who had 2 kids already, so we were becoming the Brady Bunch. In that situation, he had younger kids, which made it harder.
Challenging, yeah.
Which I didn't realize was going to be so much of a challenge. That really was tough. And it was also a COVID relationship, more or less. There was a lot of factors, But I've learned so much about myself and dating and what I don't want, what I do want. The question mark for me with all of my dating experience, is it do you stay in a marriage or a relationship and work through things no matter what? I have that tattoo. By the way, me and my second husband got tattoos that say no matter what. That didn't really work out. Don't get matching tattoos. Kiss of death. And it's funny because I don't know, because in my first marriage, I think that was it. 16 years, I was done. I was it was never coming back. My second marriage, I didn't feel that way. I would have kept fighting for that. He didn't want to, Yeah. So, it's and I guess you need both people to be we're going to fight for this no matter what. And it's what matters the most, chemistry, the lifestyle. I think Adrian and I, my second husband, we had different lifestyle desires. And I think that was a big problem too.
Yeah.
It's there's just so much.
It's tough because I think there's 2 kind of factors that go into it. You look at the first relationship, and very similarly, I met David, my ex-husband, when I was 27. So we were both
I feel everybody met their person.
Yes,
they were 26 or 27.
26 or 27, which again felt old at the time, but then
Babies.
In retrospect, a child bride, truly. Like, who let that happen? But it's one of those things where you're like, I was like, this is it. But here's the other thing that happens, and I think this is similar to you and Cam, and I'm curious, is like, when you meet someone in your like 20s, you're like, we're having this relationship, we're doing it, we're so in love, it's so great. What happens next is like one or two things, and I've seen both happen. And with mine, this is sort of what happened. We didn't grow together.
Yeah.
I skyrocketed. Like my career, my life, my friends, the way I approach things. I grew in therapy. I grew as a person.
Right.
I was not perfect by any means, but I was growing by the end of our relationship. I was a completely different person when we got divorced when I was, I think, 37. He kind of stayed the same and didn't really evolve or change. And that's not necessarily like a bad thing.
It's just what
it just wasn't what I had experienced. And so I, stayed and tried to, I probably should have gotten divorced much earlier.
Same.
But like you stay
How many
around.
people do you think say that?
Truly everyone.
That should be the title of this episode.
Yeah.
I should have gotten divorced
much earlier.
Yeah.
But like, I also have no regrets around it. I mean, like my ex and I have a very interesting relationship. We're still really good friends, which I think is like really rare. But again, I feel like that's like when you knew it was like a natural ending. It was like, it just wasn't, we weren't good together anymore, and it wasn't happy, and we had different lifestyles.
Was it a joint decision from you guys?
No.
Yeah, it was you.
It was me. There was also other factors at play, like addiction and things like that were really challenging to overcome.
Pesky little things. I
So
have those
messy.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, everyone.
I think that's pretty common.
And okay, so I think it was Simon Sinek. Is that how you say his name?
Simon Sinek,
So
yeah.
Simon Sinek said, there was a TikTok that said, like, if you want a good relationship, you have to have two of the three. And it's an emotional connection, an intellectual connection, or a sexual connection.
Yeah.
If you have two of the three, you'll have a good relationship.
Intellectual, sexual,
Emotional. Compatibility. If you want a great relationship, you need three of the three. And I think we were missing like one of those things. Like we had a good relationship in many ways, but it wasn't a great relationship.
What were the two you had?
I don't want to say because I don't want to offend anyone.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'll say because like for me, like with Cam, like we were best friends.
Yes.
And we didn't really have. And that is a whole other long story, but like the sexual connection really wasn't there.
Totally.
And I think I read about that in my book, or at least I'm talking about it now.
Yay.
But that was, I mean, he would tell you that.
It's a huge component, but I also think that happens in these longevity relationships.
And I also think like, I kind of think without the sexual connection, you can't have the emotional connection. If it's just sexual, then
that's a problem.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
But if it's like it's sexual and it's connected, and there's a level of intimacy, which I think sex brings, because that's the other thing. Not to make this a sex episode, but why not? We should have sex with we should have sex with Emily. Come on the show. Do you know her?
No, I love. Yeah.
Because like my first relationship was lacking in that area. I didn't understand the connection of intimacy and sex, where like now I'm like, oh yeah, sex is great and feels good and all that stuff, but like it's actually the physical being that as close as you can possibly be to this human that you love. You just can't physically get closer, and there's such an intimacy with like being literally that close with somebody and feeling so connected. And
here's what I'll also say: I think there's a link between our ages and that feeling, because I feel like at least growing up, it was never about the woman and sex. Like,
yes,
I think like for a huge chunk of our lives, it was just like all about the man, turning him on, like blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And then there's been this huge cultural shift where it's like it's all about like women are finally like, I was faking it forever. Like whatever. I mean, Baby Girl, the Nicole Kidman movie, is it like,
I haven't seen it yet.
Okay, spoiler alert.
I heard it's like a porn.
It's really good. You have to see it. But there's a whole through line around like she can't come with her husband and she can't tell him because she feels like, because she loves him, he's amazing, he's such a good partner, but it's like this one weird thing. Yeah. Anyway, but I'm like, that has
this show has turned into
we've taken
Who's Your Daddy now? What's that show? Who's Your Daddy?
Or no, Call Me Daddy.
Call Me Daddy.
But like, I feel like
or Who's Your Daddy?
One of those things where I also think like the idea around sex has changed so drastically. Yeah. And now we're single and in our 40s and like know what we like, know what we want, know whatever. And so it's a different ball game, I feel like, than the marriages we started when we were 27.
By the way, you cannot say, but I've never faked an orgasm.
Oh, I have 100%.
I never have.
Many.
I'm like, you should know that you did not achieve that.
Now I'm like fully like, absolutely. Guess what? I went out with this Michelin star chef. He had like 2 Michelin stars. And
you think that guy would know what he's doing?
No, absolutely not. And literally, my friend goes, Michelin stars 2, orgasms 0. I was like, literally fucking for real.
but yeah, I mean, but I'm like, listen.
I hope he listens to this episode.
I hope he does too, fucker.
Yeah.
Like because I know this guy, I know this story.
Yeah,
which we don't have to go into all of
Yeah.
it, but that's it. That's the other thing is we're gonna have to have episodes just about specific dates.
Oh my God, I have so
and
many.
I know.
So
I mean,
crazy.
we
Yeah.
But I think like, and then maybe that's like an empowerment thing for me that I'm like, fuck that, I'm not faking
No, I
it.
love that. Now I'm like that. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm like, you should know that like I'm not phoning this in. It's also like I think it's a false sense of intimacy, a false sense of like, because it is really intimate.
totally.
Like you're sharing something really, special with somebody. So I don't subscribe to that at all. But I do agree that the paradigm has shifted, right? Like
Yeah.
where it was just like a lot of things. It was like a man's world situation where now it's like no.
Yeah.
And you're right. Like we're older, know what we want.
Yeah.
But back to the three things.
Yeah.
Like I feel like so it was
Emotional, sexual intimacy, and intelligence. We're just really horny right now. No, but here's what I'll say about the emotional side. I feel like I've met a lot of men that are not emotionally like mature at all. Can't express their emotions, can't talk about their emotions. When they're angry, it's like the way they handle it's awful.
Yeah, this is the problem. Back to like my unicorn in the first show we were talking about. It's like also men are like, I think with like the Me Too movement and men going into this like state of, oh God, I can't just kiss her. I have to ask her if I can kiss her. Like, don't ask me. Just kiss me. Guys, for the record.
No, for
don't
sure.
freaking ask. Like,
Nobody asked me.
People ask me.
Really?
But I think it's this like,
intimidation.
It's because they're intimidated and they also, and I understand this and I have respect for this, that they're like, oh, I don't want to cross the line or upset somebody. I just don't really subscribe to all of that. I understand like some women have been through some crazy shit and they would want that,
For sure.
So it's tough on a man to feel like he can be chivalrous and bold. Like I like an almost arrogant guy. Like I do kind of like that.
Why do you think that is?
I think I like a really take charge, like no bullshit, in control, powerful man. It's what I like.
Wow. Because I feel like arrogance is the wrong, because arrogance sounds toxic to me.
I know.
I feel like we want a confident man.
I know, but I like a guy who's really, really confident.
Yeah. Well, you like masculine energy. I feel like you like that, like really
I've always liked
hetero masculine energy.
do.
Because the guys you date give that vibe.
I know.
Yeah.
I like that kind of guy. Like I like a guy who's like that. And yeah.
But I think that's also a reaction to our experience having been in charge for so long.
I remember when we started raising money for Dry Bar and we were talking to like really powerful, like successful men who were like, they were smart, they had their shit together. And I was like, oh, yeah. When he's like, yeah, Mom.
She said, who?
Yeah. I mean, that's when I realized like, oh, I like that kind of guy. Like I like that kind of man. And that was really where it started to, like, cause I was exposed to a different kind of man where I had not really been most of my life, or I was like, I feel like I was dating like, people who were not in that kind of world. And that really like opened my eyes and I was like, oh, and that's the thing about back to like getting married when you're, in your early 20s, like you don't know who you are.
No,
you definitely don't know what you want. And even if you think you know what you want at that time, it's probably going to change.
Definitely. Yeah, it's interesting because I think for me, I feel very similarly. Like I don't like to be like, I don't want to be like the super alpha in the relationship. I feel like I've been that alpha in relationships and it has not worked out well.
Well, that's the other thing that I'm like so fascinated by is like the feminine masculine thing, which is to your point is like, yeah, we are alpha and we live most of our lives in this alpha. We're making the decisions. For me, it's like, my kids live with me full time. Like I do a lot, and so I desperately want to be with a man who's like, no, babe, I've got everything. You can just sit back now. When you get home, when you're with me, I've got it. Like I want that so badly. But my natural instinct, if you don't act that way, I'm just naturally going to be that way because that's who I am. So, and like I've had friends say to me, I think it was like guy friends one of my guy friends said to me, like, the right guy for you you won't have to think about that. That will just naturally happen, And in most cases when I'm dating, that does not happen. Like I am. Interesting. At least I don't feel it.
Do you tell them that that's what you like or want?
Well, I don't want to have to tell them.
I know, girl, but they are so dumb. I literally feel like the more I tell people, I'm like, you can't fake orgasms and the way you act. Like, but honestly, it's like, I feel like for me, sometimes like I will tell guys, I'm like, I really like being sent flowers. Like I always say that. And then I inevitably will always get flowers. Yeah. But like, I don't think they're
surprise and
sending
delight me all day
fucking
long.
flowers. Yeah, but it's like, I love that too, but I don't think it's like inherently, I think it's tough because I think everyone's dancing around what they want and like, am I being too much? Am I being too little? Am I saying, do I like you too much? Should I like you less? Like,
it's funny because I was about to say, like, not me. I'm very bold with what I want, but you're right because like I have been dating someone, and we're not going to talk about too much detail yet, but it's like I find myself being like, oh wait, I think I'm in this dance of trying to say what I think he wants me to say or do it. I'm like, oh fuck, what am I doing? You know, but it's hard, you know. But on the like surprise and delight, which we both talk about a lot in our businesses, like that was a big thing at Dry Bar. It was like surprise and delight. Like I want that in a relationship.
Totally,
you know? Like
of course.
surprise, like
it's romance.
It's romance.
Yeah,
like I had like a little surprise note in my wallet today, and I was like,
oh, I love that.
I love that shit.
Okay, so going back to past relationships, what do you think your biggest lessons were from marriage 1 and marriage 2?
Well, I think biggest takeaways overall were don't rush in, which I rushed in to both of those relationships.
You are such a, like you are an all-in lover girl. Which I love about you. I love that.
I love love. I'm like, let's do it. Let's get married. Yeah. There's like, everything is a Taylor Swift song for me. And there's like, we go from one kiss to getting married. That's like, I'm like,
truly.
That's me.
Okay, so don't rush in.
Don't rush in. And I think just fucking slow your shit down, which I won't do, you know? I mean, I think, but except that like now I also think like I don't need to get married again. I think when I came out of my first marriage and my kids were still youngish, I think I wanted a partner for my boys, and like I think I still had this idyllic idea of relationships, and now I'm like, I don't need to get married again. I'm like, I mean, I've said this to you. I say this to everybody, just a ring and a promise. No more paperwork, you know? It's like everybody's free to go when they want to go, and nobody's giving anybody any money. You know, it's like I prefer that.
It is so strange how it goes down as like a business transaction at the end. It's very strange.
It's very strange.
Yeah. Well, okay. So speaking of rushing in, this is actually a really interesting thing, and I'm going to totally forget where I heard it from. Yours. Okay. Well, basically someone said when men go on a date and they meet a girl, they start that girl at 0, and then every date they work them up to like 100. Like, oh, I really like her. Women start dates at 100, and then they knock them down.
Do you just know this, or where?
No, this was from a TikTok. I swear I learned it. The only thing I know about dating is TikTok.
We're crediting this to TikTok.
No, it's from a TikTok.
May or may not be in business when this show comes out.
Totally, we don't know. Yeah. But I saw that and I was like, oh my God. So now I start everyone at 0. I'm like, oh, 0. Like when I show up, I'm like,
gotta start doing
you gotta start doing that because you definitely started at 100.
Oh, we're like, I'm in love with you before we've even met.
No, we have to just pull it back.
That's probably one of my other things that I shouldn't be doing is like and that was like the problem with my second marriage is like I put him on a pedestal, you know, and I was like already, and you know what's so fucked up? This is a crazy old story, but like when I was just going into high school, all the way back like a million years ago, my brother was friends with this guy. And he was this really cute guy, but he was my brother's age, like too old for me to date. But he had a younger brother. And I remember him telling me, oh, he's too old, but he's got a younger brother. And in my mind, I was like, perfect. I don't even need to see him. He's the one, you know? And I was obsessed with this guy, the younger brother, throughout high school. He was the first guy I had sex with.
You don't even know this. Okay, but this is perfect because guess what my lesson is from it? It's ask more questions.
Yeah.
Ask more
information.
More fucking
but like,
information.
What questions? Like, what do you feel like you need to know?
Because I think like I think with my ex-husband, so I came out of when I met David, I was 2 years single. I had come out of a really bad relationship, like physically abusive, emotionally abusive, like nightmare relationship. And when I met David, I remember being like, oh, he's such a good guy.
Right.
And I like grabbed onto that with my life. Like, and he is still such a good guy.
Yeah.
But I didn't go deeper than that. I wasn't like, what do you want your life to look like in 10 years? How do you react in bad situations? Like, what is your emotional capacity? Have you been to therapy? Do you want to live in LA forever? Like, I just didn't get into the fucking weeds
foundation
because I was like so young and like it was good and like we were good people. Like, it just felt like all the other stuff was gonna figure itself out, and like plot twist, it does not figure itself out.
Yeah, no,
it's actually crucial.
And yeah, I mean that was part of the demise of both of my marriages. Like we just wanted different things, you know, and it's like to the point of like how many of these things line out before you decide to get married.
Yeah.
And decide to.
I mean, there's always an unknown. I think that's part of it.
And you're never gonna know. And to your earlier point about like growing with somebody, you know, it's like they're especially now, especially at this point in our lives, because I think when you get married in your like, you know, 20s, 30s, chances are you're getting married, you're starting your career, you're having children. Like that's kind of baseline for most people. And then when you're our age, it's all very different because it's like, you know, you could be like, oh, I just want to be in my Napa house. I want to have, you know, for me, it's like, I really do want to have a farm and a couple horses and dogs. And like, at that point, right now, I kind of want to travel because I'm still like exploring. Yeah. But I ultimately want to find my guy and buy a farm and a horse and just live there and that be my life, you know? And if I'm with a guy that's like, no, I want to be in New York City. And it's like, well, that's probably not going to work. But me, I'd be like, well,
we'll figure it out.
But if
pay attention to the things,
that's why I like paying attention. But then again, if he was like, oh, you know, we could spend like 6 months on the farm and 6 months in New York, I'd be like, that will work, you know. But you're right, you have to like get to these things and not ignore them and not ignore red flags, you know.
Exactly, and like people tell you exactly who they are. You just have to listen.
I know,
and it's like I feel like women, because I do this too. I'm like, we'll figure that out. He'll say yes. He'll do whatever. It's like, no,
it'll come. It'll come. Yeah.
No.
Do you follow Jillian? What is it?
Turecki. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, she's a
wealth of information.
Yeah. Thank you.
No, I love it because
she's great.
There's so much that goes into it. But I think coming out of like just kind of wrapping up like our past relationships, like I think everything is information, right? Everything is a learning. There's lessons taken away from it. I have no regrets, like truly.
And I think that like one of the reason I brought her up is like one of the things that she talks about, which a lot of like relationship and dating experts talk about now, is like there's not one. There's so many.
Totally.
Which, by the way, it gives us all hope. You know, it's like there, and it only takes one to be in that relationship, but there's so many different people out there that would potentially
fit with you,
be a great match for you, you know, which I think for me is always really makes me feel really good that it's like, oh, I didn't go to that party, so I missed that guy, or I didn't go to that coffee shop. You know,
can't like, think like that.
I know.
It's crazy making.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why like we're doing this show. So if you're in like the same position that we are and you're dating and trying to figure it out, it's like there's so many different men or women or whatever you're into. By the way, we should talk about this on another episode. Like how many people are dating multiple people? That's like poly, is that what it's called?
Oh, no, yeah. We can talk about the dating apps.
I'm like, I have one boyfriend
ethically
is enough.
non-monogamous. Like I'm exhausted.
No,
so
I can't do that. I mean, whatever floats your boat. But wow.
No,
I was like on a plane the other day, and I was talking to this woman who happened to be a lesbian, and she was telling me that she has 2 girlfriends, and I was like, you have 2 girlfriends? Like, isn't that a lot to manage?
Yeah.
And by the way, it was.
Yeah, I think it's very normal in like queer relationships. Because I know so many lesbian friends, gay friends that like have open like that's just like so natural, which like great, love that for them. But I think for me, it's like the ones that I'm always like, are you fucking kidding me? I'll tell you about I hooked up with an ethically non-monogamous guy who was in a relationship with a girl. But in my head, I was like, are you?
Did it? How was that? I have a friend who's dating.
It was interesting, like.
Because you know, like it's not going anywhere, right? Unless is he bringing you
100%. No, it was like in Mexico. It was like a hot little moment. But it was literally like, he's like, this is my girlfriend, like showed me her. And then he's like, we have an ethical, like anything outside of Mexico City, like it's fine and blah, blah. And in my head, I was like, could never, would never. But also just like.
Wait, but did you hook up with him?
Yeah, we like, nothing crazy, but like had like this cute little like moment. And afterwards it was like, he was like, you know, like texting me just like all this stuff, like it was so beautiful. Like, it was amazing. And in my head, I'm like, I would murder my boyfriend.
I know.
If he was doing that. Like, I don't give a shit what city you're in. Yeah. But also I'm like.
They that was open.
That's their thing. Yeah, they're open and like that is what it is.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think that's like a generational thing for us. Like,
yeah.
You know, I have zero interest in that. No, thank you. Like,
I mean,
no.
But I'm like, respect. Listen, like, I get it. Like, I wish I could be that person. I cannot. But I also know people where it was like, they've opened their marriage and it's like made it better. So it's like, I don't fucking have the answers.
I mean, we talked about that early and back in the day, me and like Cam for a second. And it was like, I was like, I think if we do that, I'm going to just go fall in love with somebody else.
Yeah. You're like, but like, at least you're open and honest about that. I mean, truly, like, you have to be a very specific type of person, but.
It's fascinating to me. Yeah. We need to have somebody like that come on the show.
No, totally.
And talk about like how you manage around that.
For sure. I mean, I know so many people, but
I mentioned that to like a straight guy.
I feel like it'd be fun to be the third.
He was like,
what's up, guys? I'm out. no problem. No, like you get the cuteness of like having a little thing, and then you're like, oh, you guys are fighting. I'm gonna get out of here.
Yeah, but
well, on the next episode, we're gonna talk about present dating, and I will talk to you about a lot of the E&M guys that I've chatted with.
What does that mean again?
Ethically non-monogamous. It's so dumb.
I feel like I've seen it on Raya where some guys
so
are like,
many.
I
on here with my partner, I'm like, sure.
Yeah. No, bye.
Also, I'm like, yeah, no, it's wild. But, and again, like, good for them. But I also feel like sometimes it's men cheating
And
that
just saying,
put like, mostly on Hinge, not Raya because it's too public, but like E&M or whatever. And I'm like, I think you're, or like in an open relationship. And I'm like, I feel like it's like, are you? But I don't know. Who knows?
Who knows?
Talking about the past to wrap up, like I think we have a lot of learnings from like those relationships, and I feel like that we've brought into the future, which we'll get into on the next episode.
Yes. Can't wait.